UFC featherweight has a very good problem on their hands with too many contenders for the belt to challenge Alexander Volkanovski later this year. Let's get into who should be fighting for the title later this year. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and let's get the video underway. So I do have, well, not necessarily me, but there are 4, maybe 5 possible contenders for the belt in the UFC featherweight division. We have Aljamain Sterling, we have Lerone Murphy, Diego Lopez, and MOVSAR'S. And I'll even throw in Yair Rodriguez, even though I don't think he will be fighting for the title. But I'm gonna, look at the pros and the cons for each and every one of these contenders coming up. So let's get it started with Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain, I will be flat out, I do not believe. Well, before I start, I'm gonna go in order from least potential to the most potential for fighting for the title next. Now, Aljamain Sterling, like I said, I do not believe he will be fighting for the title in his next fight. If you go through his record, let's go back to when he lost to Sean O'Malley, then decided to move up to featherweight. Cool. Now you're in a new division, former bantamweight champion, not necessarily wiped clean, but let's see how you do in the featherweight division. He fights against Calvin Kattar. Pretty much mopped the floor with him, but did not get a finish on that UFC 300 card, which we all know was a pretty spectacular card. Yes, he won the fight, looked pretty good, but again, did not get a finish against a Calvin Kattar who, looking at him now, has been slowing down, losing to a lot of, not a lot, but he lost to Steve Garcia as well. So that win doesn't really age well as far as title contention goes. Then in his very next fight later that year, December, he fights MOVSAR'S. Very, very high level wrestling, high level grappling exchanges in that fight, but he loses by unanimous decision. The fight was very close. I'll give him that. Did it make me say, Aljamain got robbed? No, I definitely thought MOVSAR won the fight. Probably had a little bit more, control time throughout the match, but again, now you're in a new division and you're 1-1. That loss definitely sets you back. Then we go to his most recent win over Brian Ortega, who damn near died hours before their fight. Brian Ortega, if you don't know, was cutting weight, he missed weight because the fight was at a catch weight, actually, was pulled to the hospital and then pulled back into the fight all within 4 to 6 hours. They fight at a catch weight of 154 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. He looked okay throughout the fight, but late in that fight, Brian Ortega was putting it on Aljamain Sterling and damn near had him finished. Herb Dean actually had to tell Aljamain to stop running because he was hurt. Aljamain did not finish Brian Ortega, which does not sit right in my mind as far as a title shot goes. I feel as though maybe if he finished Brian Ortega, who hasn't been finished in quite a long time. If you go through Brian Ortega's record, he does have the loss to Yair Rodriguez, which counts as a TKO, but his knee blew out. Diego Lopez almost knocked him out in the first round, but he woke him back up. And then he also lost to, why am I drawing a blank right now? Brian Ortega lost to, I know he won against Yair. And then he lost to, I'm drawing a blank. Diego, Yair. Okay. Yeah. And then lost to Aljamain. So yeah. I don't see Aljamain Sterling getting a title shot, going 2-1 in his last 3 fights. And two of the wins are against older, washed competition, and you didn't finish neither one of them, and then you lose to the number 1 contender in the division. I can't give Aljamain Sterling a title shot with that record alone, and he's not really a sellable, marketable athlete at this point in his career. Maybe if it was the Funk Master that was finishing guys with at least getting a couple submissions under his name up at this weight, but he hasn't even been doing that. So I can't go with Aljamain Sterling for a title shot. Next up in the list, who I believe is nowhere near a title shot, is going to have to be Yair Rodriguez. Now, I will say his performance over Patricio Pitbull was pretty outstanding, but a year before that, he lost to Brian Ortega after almost knocking him out in the 3rd round and getting subbed. So you're 1-1 in your last 2. The fight before that, you fought for the belt against Volkanovski 2 years ago now, 3 years ago now, almost, and you got TKO'd. So I'm not gonna put you back in the octagon with a guy that you got knocked out by just because you have a win over Patricio Pitbull, who was making his debut. Granted, you looked really good doing it, but again, I can't justify a win over Pitbull to get you a title shot. You know what I'm saying? He looked good. I do think there is a fight available for him, and it makes even more sense now. I wish it was, the UFC Noche main event, but I feel as though him versus Diego Lopez makes the most sense right now out of, whoever's left. I can't give Yair Rodriguez a title shot. I don't think he's made the necessary adjustments to beat Volk. Maybe Volk is, a tad bit slower. We know he's been clicked, back to back, but he came back and beat Diego Lopez in spectacular fashion. So his chin doesn't look like it's gone. I don't think Yair catches him with a shot, and I feel as though Yair is still suspect to getting taken down and possibly finished again. So Yair Rodriguez is still crossed off the title shot list for me. Next on the list, we are going to MOVSAR Evloev. Yes, MOVSAR has just been sitting and waiting for a fight for almost a year now. His last one was Aljamain Sterling. I know he was supposed to fight Aaron Pico, pulled out. He also was, let's get to Tapology, because he was also supposed to fight somebody else, and he pulled out of that fight as well. And I am not a firm believer of giving guys title shots after you're just sitting around waiting. I don't think, he should be fighting I don't think Arman Sarukian should be getting a title shot either, but that, we could get to the lightweight division later. So MOVSAR, yes, he got a win over Diego Lopez in his debut, but it was a little close. Did have a couple moments where he pulled away, but Diego still, made good on his debut and looked really good doing it. He's supposed to fight Bryce Mitchell, got canceled. Fought Arnold Allen, won unanimous decision. Got a canceled fight with Aljamain in October 2024, and then fights Aljamain in December. Looked pretty good. UFC 310, looked good doing it. Like I said, it was a close fight, but a win over Aljamain still doesn't warrant a title shot in my opinion. Then he was supposed to fight Aaron Pico back in July, and he pulled out because of a injury, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe he just decided to pull out. It was supposed to be on that Saudi card or the Dubai card, and he pulled out, which is why we ended up getting Pico versus Lerone Murphy, which was a much better fight in my opinion. Not for Pico necessarily, but as far as highlights go, we'll say that. But MOVSAR Evloev, yes, he might be the most technically difficult matchup for Volk because his wrestling is so great. But again, he's why do you think Dana White waited so long to give Magomed Ankalaev a title shot? One, he wasn't really entertaining. You look at the Alexander Rakic fight. Yes, he won, but he never really put any stamping moments in that fight. Didn't really have Rakic hurt either. It was really just, it kind of looked like a sparring match, but he ended up getting a title shot. He won, not necessarily in impressive fashion, but he did what he needed to do to win. I don't think Dana White is itching to give MOVSAR a title shot against, one of the highly touted champions in the UFC who can sell pay-per-view. Well, we don't have to worry about pay-per-views anymore with Paramount Plus, but still, he is a fan favorite. I'm not giving you a title shot when 1, you're pulling out of fights, 2, you're boring, and 3, you've just been sitting around. So MOVSAR is going to have to fight. And if Yair's not going to fight Diego, then you do Yair versus MOVSAR, and that, that could be a title eliminator. Make it 5 rounds. You can do it at the, at the Apex after they expanded or whatever, or you could do it on another, number card and have them 2 fight. But I can't give Yair, I can't give Aljamain, I can't give MOVSAR a title shot. Now, to the 2 guys that I do believe have the best chance of getting a title shot. Second, I'm gonna have to go. I'm making this decision right now on the fly. I'm gonna have to go with Lerone. I think Lerone is behind Diego Lopez, and I'm gonna say this because of this. I feel as though Lerone Murphy, yes, his finish over Aaron Pico was amazing. Yes, it was on short notice, but I don't think a win over Aaron Pico compared to what Diego Lopez just did to Gene Silva gets you a title shot over Diego Lopez. Aaron Pico, we all know, was making his debut. I picked Aaron Pico in that fight. I thought Pico, he did have a lot of success early in that match. He actually hurt Lerone Murphy, early in that first round. Just got a little too over aggressive and walked into the perfect, spinning back elbow, which is what Diego Lopez almost, also got his finish with. But the expectation for Pico and Gene Silva was completely different. Pico was put into the UFC, and a lot of people believed that he would be competitive. The fight with MOVSAR was supposed to see exactly where he matched up. Instead, he got lined up with Lerone Murphy, who is a very tactical striker. Wasn't necessarily known for the power, but yes, he has 2 or 3 finishes, I believe, in the UFC. Yeah, three finishes in the UFC now. 8 TKOs overall, 3 in the UFC. But it wasn't like Lerone was, prior to the Pico matchup, I feel as though Lerone was still 2 fights away from the title because he beat Josh Emmett by a decision, but he still had moments where he still looked a little iffy. If that was Volk against Lerone Murphy and had the success that Josh Emmett was able to have, I feel as though Volkanovski more than likely would have won that fight. He beat Dan Ige, but he also got dropped by Dan Ige in that fight. So he beat Dan Ige when I believed he was number 13 and number 12. Josh Emmett was probably 10 or 8 in the division. And then he gets matched up with a non-ranked Aaron Pico, where yes, the finish was spectacular, and I even was giving him a title shot. But we got to go to Diego Lopez now, where everybody in the world believed Gene Silva was going to maybe not finish Diego, but definitely beat him. And Diego made, Diego made Gene Silva look very, very, I don't even know what the word is. He beat him everywhere. He took him down. He had some success in a ground and pound, bruised him up, bumped him up, sliced his eye open, and got the finish over Gene Silva, which is something that we have never seen. Gene Silva was supposed to be, the guy to dethrone Alexander Volkanovski next, and Diego Lopez put a halt to everything. The fanfare over Gene Silva was amazing. Gene Silva was definitely the most the most fan favorite featherweight on the rise at this point, and in everyone's careers. And Diego Lopez putting a halt to that the way that he did, with all the back and forth that these guys had, with all the dirty with the trash talk, and the way that he was able to finish him with Gene Silva pressuring him and gets the perfect spinning back elbow and finishes him off with some ground and pound. I gotta give Diego Lopez the rematch, because he came back after losing to Alexander Volkanovski looking better than he ever did. He's his chin is still there. I know Volk was able to drop him, but Gene Silva was catching him with some pretty big front kicks to the chin, and he ate it and was able to walk forward and finish Gene Silva. Gene Silva has been finishing everybody that he's fought in the UFC, and to put him down the way that he did, and pretty much silencing the fighting nerds for almost the rest of the year. We know we got Prates versus Leon Edwards coming up, which is a fight that I'm super excited about. But every single fighting nerd took a loss this year. And the way that Diego Lopez was able to finish Gene Silva, which was the one that everyone thought, was the best out of the group. I felt as though Kyle was, but Gene Silva, he was nasty in his own right. I got to give Diego Lopez the title shot, man. I feel as though he's the most deserving. He has I want to say catalog for some reason, but you know what I'm trying to say, the record to prove it. Yes, he fought for the title in his most recent bout, but I feel as though the improvements that we just saw him make in this fight, you got to give him the title shot. He is probably the most, fan favorite, the most sellable out of the bunch. And that fight already was fireworks. You book it again, we might have a different outcome. So I feel as though Diego Lopez is the right match for Alexander Volkanovski later this year for the next title shot in the featherweight division. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll be happy to discuss your point of view, my point of view. I just want to hear what you guys got to say. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you on the next one.